Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first Victory Green Hour of the 2025 NFL season as the Philadelphia Eagles opened up the season with a 24-20 victory over the Dallas Cowboys at Lincoln Financial Field on banner reveal night. I'm your host, LG Harrell, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, thanks for stepping in there last week. A little under the weather, but I'm feeling a lot better today. How's it going?
Me, and my co-host, the cricket. I know that there were some people who heard the cricket going in the background, but if you hear tonight, it is gone. I have rid myself. I think it was 2 episodes that damn cricket was somewhere in my garage. And if you've ever tried to get rid of a cricket, you really can't. You just kind of have to let them
Did
find
you
their way
find
out.
it or did it just disappear on its
It
own?
it just disappeared or died. Who knows? Whatever it did, it is not here. So, but I mean, it's great that we're doing a victory green hour. I'm so excited. There's so much to talk about. Was it pretty? It was week one. Of course, it wasn't pretty, but I mean, we got lots to get into. So let's get going.
Yep, as always, before we start, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHerrell54. Follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your podcast at Eagles Pinpool Network. Like, subscribe, listen to all the shows. Plenty of Eagles talk and NFL talk throughout the weekend. College football talk if you're into the draft, as like we're already there are certain people that like to look ahead to see the Eagles have 10 draft picks, and see where they could use those picks to fill needs on the roster. And if you're joining us live, let us know your thoughts on the game. 24-20 victory. Um, and we're not going. This is our review show. Later in the week, Thursday or Friday, we will do our preview show heading into the Super Bowl rematch in Kansas City against the Chiefs. So we aren't going to touch base on that in this episode. But if you have thoughts on the Eagles Cowboys game, on the Tank Bigsby trade, on the Za'Darius Smith signing, on the Jalen Carter situation as it came down about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, that Jalen Carter will not be suspended. What the NFL said, and this isn't word for word, that he has been fined and suspended one. He has been suspended one game and fined a game check for his actions of spitting on Dak Prescott before a snap, 6 seconds into the game on Thursday. But since he did not play a snap, that was time served pretty much. That was his suspension. And his $57,222 that he was fined, that's how much he makes per game check. So it's done. It's null and void. Or I shouldn't say null and void, but we can hopefully move past that. If the Eagles want to punish him in any way, like they did, I think it was last year going into the Atlanta game or a game later in the year, they didn't start him, and I think he may have sat a quarter for missing meetings. The Eagles could potentially do that. But the one thing I noticed, the defense is a lot different without him. But you know who deserves a lot of freaking credit? Jordan Davis and Moro Ojomo. Now, Moro Ojomo, we know, like in spurts last year, he was really good. One of the top backup defensive tackles. But he had to play him and Jordan Davis played about 85 to 88% of the snaps against the Cowboys. The most snaps that Jordan Davis has seen in his career, and all the work that he put in the offseason, getting in shape, losing 30 plus pounds, wanting to be on the field a lot more. Nobody thought that it was going to, come to fruition right away, but it did. And he deserves a ton of credit because he was out on the field and he was productive. He could have had 2 sacks, had Dak Prescott in his grasp a couple times, was able to deflect the pass. Jordan Davis, I'm going to start off there where he deserves a world of credit with what he was able to do. Pretty much he was going to start, but he wasn't going to play that many snaps if Jalen Carter was available the entire game.
Yeah, agreed with you on that point. I mean, we know this defensive line, like Moro Jomo was probably a breakout guy to look out for. We knew Jordan Davis. We were expecting some big things. He was better. He looked more fit. He looked like he was ready to take even a further step this season than he did over the past seasons. And to see that he played the most, and Vic Fangio even mentioned that last year he probably wouldn't have played this many snaps in a game, but he was able to do it. And I mean, the only complaint I have on him is finish your damn tackles. But I mean, if all that you have to complain about is that he was flushing Dak into the pocket, he was making Dak Prescott uncomfortable. I think he also missed another tackle at one point, even on a run play that he probably should have had. So, I mean, beyond just finishing those tackles, I mean, he was thrown in a situation where he's not generally the guy who plays that many snaps and is put in that position that he has to be the guy going after the quarterback. That's Jalen Carter. That's what he does. And then if you look back at the tape, and I see a lot of, the all 22 that guys like Eagles, Eric and Shane have been sharing this week. Moro Jomo was double teamed on a lot of the plays because that's essentially what the Dallas Cowboys prepared for anyways, was to double team Jalen Carter. So they continued to do essentially what they were going to do before, but they did it to Moro Jomo and were able to way more easily stifle a guy like Moro Jomo because that's not what Moro Jomo was prepared to go through. But I agree with you, ton of credit. I mean, to both of those guys, and in a big way. Like I was it feels like the edges always are slow to get going. It usually takes them a couple quarters or even the full first game. But they started to get going a little bit more and getting after Dak Prescott. I mean, it feels like we probably should have had 5 or 6 sacks, and I think we ultimately ended up having 1 maybe. But it felt like we should have had a lot more because it felt like they were right like one of the first plays of the game. Jalen Hunt looked like he was going to strip sack Dak Prescott. Like there was a few plays, and then the Jordan Davis plays, and then there was a Nolan Smith play where he had Dak Prescott in sights and didn't end up making the play. There was a lot of plays where that was happening, and that's just I'm going to attribute that to some rust, and they're getting the rust off. But I was a lot more worried in the first half about edge, and I'm like, oh, we're really going to see an issue with the edge position, are we? And then obviously Howie had seen enough that there was some concern, even though they got better and even though they were without their best defensive line player. He saw enough that Za'Darius Smith made sense, and you could tell that obviously he had his eyes on Za'Darius Smith well before this. If he was ready to pull the trigger within pretty much 24 hours of that game. But
so the Eagles didn't have any sacks, which goes into your point of bringing in Za'Darius Smith. And the Eagles and the Cowboys kind of had that advantage because especially for veterans, you don't have to guarantee their contracts after week 1. Well, you play on Thursday, you sign on Friday. You didn't have to wait, to give maybe the Chiefs or Chargers a chance, and then anybody that played on Sunday and Monday, everybody else that played, give them a chance. So yeah, and hopefully he helps. We'll see. What is he? 32, I think. Hopefully this is better than the Robert Quinn trade. We'll see if he still has some juice. I think he had 7 or 8 sacks last year for Detroit, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think it was
after the trade with Cleveland.
I think over the last 8 seasons, he has 6 seasons where he has over 8 sacks. And one season you can kind of discount because he didn't even play a full game before a season-ending injury. So, and then the one season besides that he didn't have 8+ sacks, he had 5.5. So I think, as a rotational piece with Jalen Carter there, with Jordan Davis, with everyone there and healthy and, not getting kicked out of the game as early as Jalen Carter did. I mean, I think he can definitely put some work in. I mean, Joshua Uche looked good too. Like it kind of looks like, once they start to put it together and they start making plays and the rest starts to come off, I feel like we're going to see, a decent amount of sacks this season.
Yeah, and I think obviously having Jalen Carter there will help the edges because he's going to take the double teams and he's going to be a lot better and he's more suited for it than Moro Jomo. Also, I think one of the things that once he becomes comfortable when it comes to Za'Darius Smith, they need veteran presence in that defensive end or in that defensive line room. You lost Brandon Graham, you lost Josh Sweat. The old guy is Jordan Davis, pretty much. So because you have Jalen Carter, who's in his 3rd year, Nolan Smith in his 3rd year, Jalen Hunt is in his 2nd year, and I know Jordan Davis is only in his 4th year. But like that's a young defensive line room, and Ty Robinson's a rookie. Gabe Hall, who just got released today, but he played a handful of snaps. He was in his 2nd year, I think. So it is important to kind of bring in some veteran leadership, somebody that can help these guys, and it won't be right away. He's got to become comfortable. we can say Zach Bond should be that guy, but still, he's got a rookie starting next to him in the linebacker room. And then Reed Blankenship's in what, year number 4, year number 5, and he's a UDFA. He's the elder statesman in the secondary room now. Marcus Epps is back, so maybe it's him, but he's been gone for a couple of years. But like you think about it, this is a very, very young defense. So getting somebody with experience, somebody who's been around the block, that can bring their veteran leadership and to the team could only help these guys, and maybe could prevent what happened to Jalen Carter on, before the first play of the game against Dallas. Maybe prevent that from happening in the future. It shouldn't happen again, but things could get said, and some people could lose their head a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they want Jalen Carter to step up and show that he's gonna mature, he's gonna be able to become the leader that they want him to be. Because these guys who play the way that Jalen Carter does, like he's like he was immediately drawing comparisons to Aaron Donald. Those are guys you want to be your leader, the mature guy, the kind of like the father of the children in the defensive room. But right now he still showed with this game, no matter what. I know that some people say, well, Dak Prescott's before it. I mean, at the end of the day, really doesn't matter. You need to be able to control. We saw this last year with Jalen Carter. He missed meetings. He had a game where I think he was ejected last, or at least got some sort of unsportsmanlike penalty last year. I just feel like he needs to mature, he needs to get better, and he needs to be able to be that leader and match his play with a personality that can be respected within the organization. Because right now it's just having to talk about it like Vic Fangio had to today, or having to be like you saw the video of him when he was accepting responsibility for it, and like the media was running to him to hear his answer. Of course he was going to say what he was going to say, but he said this on a couple of occasions where I've learned, I know I got to be more mature, I know I got to be better. He has to stop taking accountability and actually just show it and just start doing it, rather than just being the one that has to answer those questions during media time.
Jordan Mailata was on WIP today, and he said he talked to him. Lane Johnson talked to him. Some of those older guys, and it's tougher because they're on the offensive side of the ball. But Jordan Mailata said, like, you could see it in the conditioning this week so far, in lifting. He seems, obviously it's only a couple of days out and whatnot, but like it may seem like that he knows he messed up. He knows he shouldn't have done what he did, and he could have hurt the team. They were close to losing that game, and if he plays, maybe him playing and him wrecking havoc in the pocket, it doesn't allow Adoree Jackson to be out there chasing CeeDee Lamb for like 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds to allow him to get open. A better pass rush, getting somebody in Dak Prescott's face, will help the secondary because they don't have to be, covering for that long. So hopefully, he does learn from that, and he takes all his aggression in a positive way, and in a way you're allowed to on the football field, out on the Chiefs' offensive line and Patrick Mahomes this week. But you can definitely tell that they missed him that first drive. Dallas's game plan, like you mentioned earlier, was to double team Jalen Carter and then go from there. Well, when you don't have a Jalen Carter talent out there that's your blocking, then you can kind of open things up a little bit. They were able to run the ball a little more. Now, both offenses were really good in the first half. The Eagles, I think both offenses scored on four consecutive drives, if I'm not mistaken. The Eagles had 3 touchdowns and a field goal. Dallas had 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals. And then after that, the rain delay, and again, every time the Eagles have a banner night, there seems to be some weather issues in the 2 times that it's happened. Both offenses kind of went, the defenses started to step up. But, you mentioned how we kind of, and I think I said it last year heading into the season, I may even have said it this year, it's going to look ugly. It's going to start slow early on. The Eagles used the first 4 games as preseason games. Now, it's tough because you have the Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Rams, and the Bucs. They're not easy games, and you don't want them to be your preseason games. But if you're able to come out, work on things, and win, you'll take it. Last year, the Eagles were 2-2 before they won 15. Before in the regular season, they won 12 of their last 13, and then going on to win the Super Bowl. Obviously, we want to see them start better 2-2, but don't be surprised if over the next couple of weeks they still look sloppy, but they have to be more disciplined. I think you don't need to you don't have to not play, if this makes sense. I'm trying to figure out a way to say this. You don't have to not play to be disciplined. I hope that made sense. Because over 100 yards of penalty yards is not acceptable at all. They had too many unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. They had a handful of the 15-yard varieties. Like, that cannot happen. So the Eagles have to figure out a way to play within the rules. And again, I think the taunting penalty on Nolan Smith was BS. Like, really? Like, that was dumb. And for a league that wants to enforce that, I didn't see that call at all. I mean, I saw maybe a couple of calls on Sunday, and I saw stuff that was probably done worse than what Nolan Smith did. So while there needs to be consistency from the refs, the Eagles also just have to play a lot smarter than they played on last Thursday, and they're fortunate to come away with the win.
Yeah, I agree with you. They definitely need to play more disciplined. I mean, I think, Adoree Jackson, I mean, he gave himself whatever, a C grade of some sort. I would probably give him a D or an E. I thought he was absolutely horrible. You have to understand, like, those penalties are going to happen lots if Adoree Jackson continues to be the CB2, especially if Vic Fangio's plan is to me, the idea that Adoree Jackson was following CD Lamb for as much as he did and for as long as he did just made no sense to me. I could not understand. I get George Pickens is not someone who you should just scoff at and not respect, but to the same point, CD Lamb is better than George Pickens. They're not even on the same planet in my eyes. And so I really think that, an adjustment should have been made a lot earlier there. But like, I feel like Adoree Jackson, you're going to see penalties like that. The Kenyon Mitchell one, when you go back and you look at some of those replays, Adams over here, he says the DBs were very handsy. Yes, the DBs were very handsy, but the wide receivers are playing tough too. Like, if you look at every route that George Pickens and Kenyon Mitchell were going at it, they were both going at it, and they were both going at it very hard on each other. And you probably could have called penalties either way in those situations, but of course it always goes in, for the most part, goes in the favor of the offense. But the unsportsmanlike ones, they've enforced that rule. Like, we saw it a number of times last year. If you're gonna go and flex and stand over, and I get it wasn't like a full stand over of him, but if you're gonna flex and kind of stand over a offensive player or a defenseless player or whatever they want to call it, they're gonna call that 99% of the time. So while I saw it enough last year that I was like, as I watched it happening in real time, I was like, they're going to totally flag this. And then the flag came out of the blue. And I was like, well, here we go. Of course, here the flag came, and you just, I feel like at this point in the NFL, you just have to celebrate with your team, celebrate with your counterparts, and don't get anywhere near the opposing team. I feel like that's basically where the NFL's got to. And even then, at that point, maybe you might have to kind of be careful with that too, because you never know what they might call out as some sort of no fun league rule that they don't want to see happening. So they definitely have to be way more disciplined, and we can attribute that to week one. But I also think that some of those penalties are just really bad penalties.
So I'll say, when it comes to why Quinyon was shadowing George Pickens, which I definitely didn't agree with, I think it had more to do with CeeDee Lamb that likes to go to the slot, and Quinyon's, it's harder in the slot. And if Quinyon would be, and Quinyon didn't have a great game, it wasn't one of his better performances. But if Quinyon's able to cover Pickens, and Pickens only had 4 targets, maybe they can roll coverage towards Lamb, and obviously that didn't work. But it also helps. I mean, it doesn't help that the defensive line didn't get pressure on Prescott consistently. Now, as Adam says, Vic said Jackson is going to start for now. We also thought that Sidney Brown was going to start at safety, and Andrew Makuba ended up starting. I feel like it's going to eventually be Jacorian Bennett, but I'm also still of the ilk that the Eagles are that Howie's going to make a move for a second corner. and it won't be this week. But I do think if the second corner continues to struggle, it wouldn't shock me if they look to make a move over the next 2-3 weeks or so, before it becomes too big of a problem and you're not able to fix it. But I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Jacorian Bennett's out there this week. I think Keely Ringo is a lost cause at this point. I we didn't see him out there. He was good on special teams, and that's what he is. He's a special teams ace. He's really good at that. But he wasn't really good out there or he in the preseason. He wasn't good out there covering receivers. So if Bennett can't do it, and we know Adoree Jackson can't do it, how we have his eyes out there? And obviously, good corners aren't going to be available after week 1. Now there are certain teams that aren't going to be good, but if they're not good, they probably don't have good corners. So you're gonna have to try to find it. Now I know a team out there that who just restructured the contract of one of their top corners, and everybody, when that came out, everybody's like putting pictures of Howie. It's probably not going to happen, but that's a pipe dream right there. I won't say his name, just everybody knows who I'm talking about. But it would be nice. But yeah, I mean, Adoree Jackson wasn't good, but fortunately, like, you're not always going to go up against two pretty good receivers like Lamb and Pickens. Now, for the Eagles, though, this week, you know Rashee Rice, no Xavier Worthy, so you should be fine. But then the Rams, Puka and Devontae, the Bucks, Mike Evans and Emeka Ibuka, even without Chris Godwin. The Broncos have Sutton, Ingram. They have some good receivers there. The Giants have Neighbors, and that's pretty much it. The Vikings, Jefferson, Addison, I think will be back by then. Thielen. So they're going to have to definitely figure out that second and third, the second cornerback spot. And I know Vic said he does not want to move Cooper DeJean out there because he likes him in the slot. And I like him in the slot too. I like him near the line of scrimmage because if teams run, he's a really good tackler. He likes to get his nose in there and make plays. So I don't want him away from the action. I want him in the action. So I would leave Cooper DeJean in the slot, and hopefully they can figure out the second cornerback position, or somebody, just Jacorian Bennett, takes it, one of these weeks and runs away with it and proves to be a player.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who really want to see, Cooper DeJean on the outside and just, give like a guy like maybe Mac McWilliams or Mike Hilton, who was pretty much who they had him for a workout and is pretty much an exclusive slot. Give one of those guys a chance, because Cooper DeJean, we know, is also sticky in coverage and can be a good outside cornerback. But the reality of it with that is you lose a lot of the versatility that Cooper DeJean brings to the game when you have to push him all the way to the outside. There's almost no versatility out there. You're one-on-one, you're up against a wide receiver, you got to make your play happen. Maybe you can come in and help make a tackle, but if you're coming in to make a tackle at that point, that play's probably far too gone out of hand. So you like to have that versatility, that strong tackling ability. We see how important he is. Like, go back to last year with the Derrick Henry hit, like the stops that the Jamar Chase play, like the plays that he was able to make and get in the stops that he's able to get, plus being able to be a sticky guy in coverage underneath if anything's happening. That versatility and all the different things that he can bring to that very busy area of the field and the way he can navigate it, you don't want to take Cooper DeJean out of there, despite, a lot of fans really, really wanting that. I think they don't realize the benefit and just how truly important Cooper DeJean is, especially with them really, genuinely figuring out that area. Jihad Campbell looked great. Zach Bond looked great. It's going to be so hard when Nakobe Dean comes back to put him somewhere in there if Zach Bond and Jihad Campbell continue to look the way they do over the next 3 weeks. Of course, you're going to find a way to get Dean out there and get Dean involved. But at the end of the day, those two guys look like the tandem that you're going to be working with for the next, till Jihad Campbell, till Bond or Campbell's contracts are up. Though that's pretty much your tandem, and they look the part. Campbell looked really good in coverage on that one pass breakup that he made. Bond continued to make some big plays. Like, linebacker is shockingly figured out in Philadelphia. We have an overabundance of linebackers, which you never thought you would hear, because you have Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who had a great preseason, and he barely gets to see the field because, of course, Bond and Campbell are going to own the lion's share of the work for the longest time coming. So it's there was a lot of good things to come out of this game defensively. I think more of my concerns or more of my frustrations outside of Jalen Carter and outside of some missed tackles and plays that should have been made. Um, Most of my frustration lies over on the offensive side of the ball, or my worries, and then of course outside of CB2. Like you said, though, the amount of teams that have that tandem, of course, further on in the playoffs, those are the wide receiving groups you play, or is the 2 deep, 3 deep, 4 deep type of wide receiving groups that are going to put, a very good option out there and are going to go and attack you if they know that that's your weakness. But I think, Howie's not going to sit on his hands on this. If he already didn't sit on his hands with the edge room, even though they were without Jalen Carter. And with Jalen Carter, I bet this edge room looks a lot better and a lot different. He said, I saw enough that I'm ready to bring in Za'Darius Smith. I'm ready to get some veteran presence. I'm ready to get some more support in this edge room. So I don't think he's going to sit on his hands. He knows the window is open. The time is now for the Philadelphia Eagles. And if CB2 continues to be a problem, he's going to address it. And the amount of moves he made from the end of the game Thursday night up until literally an hour and a half ago when they waived Gabe Hall to make room for Tank Bigsby, the amount of moves, it's been at least a move a day since the game's over. So Howie is making moves and he's keeping his ear to the pavement, looking for that next move that he can make.
He's definitely not shy. Before we jump to the offensive side of the ball, the one thing that I did want to say is, Vic's probably going to want to get his best 11 players out there. So when Dean is healthy, and if he is truly healthy, like he can actually get on the field and not be a hindrance to the defense, maybe that's when you can use Zach Bond or Jahad Campbell as their edge rushers, depending on how they're doing, how the edge rushers are doing, if they're getting after the quarterback, because we know Campbell can do it, Bond can do it. So, like, if you want to get your best 11 out onto the field, like if you went with a, Carter, Davis, Nolan Smith and Hunt, or Nolan Smith, potentially Hunt, and then in the secondary you have Quinyon, Reed, Andrew Makuba, whoever CB2 is, Cooper DeJean. So that's 9 right there. And then say it's Bond and Campbell. And if Dean is truly healthy and you want to get him on the field, you can put Campbell or Bond and sub them in for a Hunt and have them rush. Like, there'd be so many different ways that you can play with the defense and use the defensive pieces that you have, to get, if you put the best 11 out there and confuse, hopefully maybe potentially confuse teams, or, get speed out on the edge and get them after the quarterback and, make the tackles. Something, unfortunately, Jordan Davis wasn't able to do. He was able to get to Dak, just couldn't bring him down, and that's what we're looking for him to do.
And I think something worth noting before you move off of that point, Jahad Campbell did play 12 out of his 56 snaps on the edge. So it is worth noting that, they're testing it out and they're preparing to maybe use that as a feasible option, just like you said, to make sure that the best players are out on the field. They're testing it out. They're seeing what's there, and they're not afraid to use Campbell and the versatility and the athleticism that he has.
Yep. So moving over to the offensive side of the football, the Eagles scored on their first 4 possessions. They scored in the first quarter, something we didn't do last year until week 13 or whatever it was. We scored on the first drive of the game, a Jalen Hurts touchdown. One thing you can tell is A.J. Brown's not healthy right now. And, he only got 1 target, didn't get that target until the fourth quarter. They went down the field once to Dotson on that 51-yarder. Didn't do many down the field plays. I wasn't too excited about the route combinations, so I don't know if that's a Patula thing. So hopefully, as AJ Brown gets more healthier, they're able to do some different combinations with these receivers and hopefully get them open, because when you have the talent that the Eagles have at receiver and they're not able to get space, they're not able to get open, that's an issue. But it was clear that AJ Brown was not healthy, and if he was healthy and only got 1 target, I'm pretty sure we might have seen the book out on the sideline, but we didn't see that. We didn't see he wasn't complaining. So I think he deep down inside, he knows he's not healthy. And I think Dallas early on wanted to probably double him and not let him beat him. And then they started to realize, especially after the delay, that he wasn't healthy. So you didn't have to double the receiver, and they were able to stack the box. And it just made no sense. A lot of the play calls when they would put Jalen under center, they just kept running that same play just right up the middle, and they didn't go outside. They went outside maybe a handful of times, and the one run, Saquon had a big run to the outside, almost like the NFC Championship game. On the first play, he just didn't take it for a touchdown, but he was able to get a first down on that, I think. So hopefully they're able to figure out offensively. But like it started out good, but then it didn't finish well. So some of the stuff that Sirianni was saying after the game, we still have a bunch of crap to fix. Yes, they have a bunch of stuff to fix. The offensive line wasn't great, and Dickerson getting hurt definitely didn't help. I expected more out of Mailata. I know he had a really good pass pro grade, but his run blocking grade wasn't that great. So hopefully they can figure it out, on the offensive line, because Chris Jones is no joke this week. Karlaftis is no joke this week. So you're gonna have to figure it out. Keep the communication tight. And Jalen only took 1 sack. The one thing he didn't take sacks. He was 19 of 23, and I think 3 of those incompletions were throwaways. So like he was really smart with the football, didn't turn the ball over, ran when he needed to run. And that I love to see. Jalen played a really efficient game. And that's what really all these people. And again, I feel like we talked about this last year. Jalen does not give a crap about his stats. I've never seen a quarterback like this. The only stat he cares about is winning or losing. He wants to win every game. If it means running the ball 50 times and having 10 yards passing, he does not give a crap. So everybody that's sitting here saying, they weren't efficient. They didn't throw the ball enough. He only threw for 150 yards. Did they win the game? Yes. Who the hell cares how it happened? I'm going to say this week in and week out. Jalen said it last year. Each game is going to look different. Each defense is going to, do something different against you. And depending on what they do against the Eagles, that's how he is going to deploy the offense. He's the one that makes the calls at the line of scrimmage. They'll give him a play. He'll decide if he wants to hand it off. He'll decide if he wants to. He makes the decisions. It's not going to look the same. So he's going to do it as he sees fit. Who cares how it looks? A win is a win is a win is a win.
Yeah, I mean, we already talked about this on the preview episode where we were addressing that, wins are wins. I think in his last 20 games, I want to say he's like 17-3. And I think somebody was pointing
in his last 15 games that he has started and finished, 15-0. Just saying.
Exactly.
It might be 16-0 now.
Exactly. And that's all that he cares about is that he wants to win. He doesn't care about his stats. He's going to take what the defense gave him. And that's what they gave him. They stacked the box. They had a focus on Saquon Barkley. They had and he was able to take advantage of that when things weren't transpiring out on the boundaries or out with the wide receivers. He ended up just taking the ball himself, or he ended up taking checkdowns or taking what the defense was giving him. And a lot of people end up getting all frustrated and saying, oh, well, we didn't throw the ball enough. We didn't throw it. To be honest, the shots, they probably should have taken more shots down the field to open things up. That's obviously a clear thing that Kevin Petula did not at all adjust for throughout the game. That one shot they took to Jahan Dotson was a thing of beauty and a perfect play and opened things up for a very, very short time. But you got to take advantage of, even though A.J. Brown wasn't healthy, Jahan Dotson was looking better throughout the offseason. He was way more comfortable in the offense. He had such nice speed on that play, such a nice catch, such a nice throw. You still had Devontae Smith there. Dallas Goedert got heavily involved in the game because there was a lot of throws, before the sticks, and where Dallas Goedert had to do a bit of the work, or Saquon Barkley had to do a bit of the work. But I mean, at the end of the day, he isn't going to care about stats. And Jeff Kerr pointed something out. I think there's like 20 quarterbacks that did not throw for 200 yards. And I think it was him or somebody else that mentioned, and the only one who's going to be mentioned on the national media stage is going to be Jalen Hurts. Mentioned and criticized on the national stage is Jalen Hurts. And what happened? I don't know of any quarterback who got scrutinized for throwing for less than 200 yards or didn't or only threw the ball, 20 to 25 times. There was no scrutiny for those guys. But of course, Jalen Hurts, it of course was brought up. Dan Orlovsky actually stood on Jalen Hurts' side, which was shocking, saying that it was one of the best games that Jalen Hurts played because you want to limit turnovers. You want to take what the defense gave you. Was it sexy? Is it flashy? Is it Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen under the bright lights of a Sunday night football game in one of the best games, well, in what probably will be the best game of this season? No, but if Jalen Hurts was put in that situation, could Jalen Hurts step up and be in that moment and make the plays? Yes, he's been to 2 Super Bowls against Patrick Mahomes and outplayed Patrick Mahomes in both of those Super Bowls. We know he can.
Dak threw the ball 34 times and threw for 188 yards. Joe Burrow threw for 113 yards. But because Jalen didn't throw any touchdown passes, they're gonna say, "Oh, he's just a product of those around him." Blah blah blah. He ran the ball for 2 scores. Like, he got the ball into the end zone. His team won. And then everybody's pointing to the Sunday night game with the Bills and the Ravens, and they're like, "Well, could Jalen do what they did?" For one thing, Jalen's not blowing a 15-point fourth quarter lead with 4 minutes to go. So if you put Jalen's not better than Lamar. Jalen's not better than Josh Allen. Football numbers and all that. But if you give Jalen that Baltimore offense, the same, you just flip Jalen and Lamar, and Jalen has the ball. Now I know it was Derrick Henry that fumbled, but Jalen has the football with a 15-point lead with 4 minutes to go. Does Baltimore win that game? Yeah. Baltimore wins that game. Now, if you were to put Jalen on the Bills down 15, now the question would be, would he allow his team to get down 15? When is the last time the Eagles were? It would be the Tampa game, right? Like the last time the Eagles were down that big, probably so. The Tampa game. It's very rare. Again, like Jalen, all he does is win. And look, Josh Allen deserves a world of credit. He's MVP for a reason. That was a hell of a comeback. The stats that Lamar Jackson had, he should have been the MVP last year. They deserve all the acclaim that they get, but not putting Jalen in that tier because his numbers aren't like that. Like, he has one thing that these quarterbacks don't have. He has a Super Bowl. Like Patrick Mahomes has a Super Bowl. Thinking about Aaron Rodgers has a Super Bowl. He's washed. But like thinking about some of these other quarterbacks, Matt Stafford has a Super Bowl. There's not many active quarterbacks in the league that have a Super Bowl. Give the man credit where credit is due.
Well, exactly. There's been 50, 57, 58 Super Bowls. So there's only 59 Super Bowls. So there's only 59 and not even 59 quarterback, because you look at the Tom Brady and stuff. So there is the max number of quarterbacks who can say they've won a Super Bowl would be 59 if there was a different Super Bowl winner every single year and not the same quarterback repeated. That is it. And Jalen Hurts has the claim to fame that he's been to 2 and he's won 1. So that is a claim that not many of these quarterbacks will get to have. And some of them may never see a Super Bowl. That's the reality of the NFL and these situations that come up. There are teams like the Eagles and the Patriots and the Chiefs who dominate the conferences or who lead their go to 2 Super Bowls in the last 4 years or go to multiple Super Bowls over a defined time period and don't give the opportunity for some of these other guys who may deserve to. Let's not say, does Josh Allen deserve to see a Super Bowl? Absolutely. Does Lamar Jackson deserve to see a Super Bowl? Absolutely. But they need to beat the teams that are in front of them. And that's what Jalen Hurts does. He beats the teams in front of him, and he doesn't end up beating himself like a Lamar Jackson. Of course, Harbaugh is not a very aggressive coach. So, of course, in that spot, would Nick Sirianni go for it on 4th and 3 from his own 38? Probably. But Harbaugh does not. Sometimes you're not given the opportunity to win the game, and that just sucks for those guys. But Jalen Hurts has been given this opportunity, and he gets the wins. He when he needs to get the wins, he gets the wins, and he's made it to the Super Bowl. He's had the chance to go one-on-one against Patrick Mahomes. And I mean, when we think about it, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, many times to go up against Patrick Mahomes because they're in the AFC and they get to see him so many times that they don't win those games. They don't outplay Patrick Mahomes in those circumstances most of the time.
I mean, the only AFC quarterback that has, besides Tom Brady, is Joe Burrow. beat them in the AFC Championship game. I know the Bills beat the Chiefs last year in the regular season, but didn't help them in the playoffs.
When it matters,
You know,
they're
the one
not
thing
able to pull that W out against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and not many people
also,
can. So
and also Justin Herbert still getting like all this praise above Jalen is so annoying. Like, just can he do something first before you give him the top 5 love? But speaking of like Jalen looked really smooth out there. He looked he looked quick. Like, if you remember, like it looked like he was kind of running with a hitch. At the end, in 2023 towards the end. Something was up with his knee. It felt like, even though he didn't have surgery, at least we didn't hear anything about surgery. But he definitely looked quick. He runs so smooth. He doesn't run like it's not like he's dragging his entire body. No, he runs smooth with the football. And I can't believe Dallas defensively, what did they do? Go man and just turn their backs to him. And like, if there's a quarterback, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, you don't want to turn your back to Josh Allen. You don't want to turn your back to quarterbacks like this. And that's what Dallas is doing all night. It's like they were missing a pass rusher, a guy that could potentially get to Jalen Hurts. It's a shame they didn't have one, maybe like they had a week before. Speaking of that guy, do you believe the report that Jay Glazer put out that the Eagles offered 2 firsts, a third, a fifth, plus more for Micah Parsons? And obviously, Jerry Jones is senile, but he ain't that senile to trade him within the division. Do you believe that report? Because that's a lot. Plus, they would have to give. Now, I don't know. Say that he did get traded to Eagles. I don't know if they would have had to give him $47 million a year, because you're going to Green Bay. Like, who actually wants to live in Green Bay? That's not a shot at Wisconsin or anything, but like, he would be closer to home. They could have potentially given him 40 to 42 instead of $47 million a year. Still a lot of money, and hopefully that they would have been able to. Obviously, they would have wanted to pair him with Jalen Carter. But your thoughts on that, and do you think it happened? And obviously Howie made a call, because that's what he does.
Well, yeah, of course, Howie definitely made a call. Did Howie make an offer? I mean, Howie's a wild man. I guarantee you Howie threw some feelers out there and was just trying to get an idea of if there was even an opportunity. I mean, that's a massive haul, way better haul than they actually got, because, of course, Kenny Clark was in that deal, but the Philadelphia Eagles probably were going to end up throwing a player of some sort into that deal who we're never going to know. But I'm sure Howie was kind of like
Davis, maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure Howie was kind of getting a feel for, like, well, let's see, picks wise, can we get there? And obviously Jerry Jones was just saying, no chance do I want to see Micah Parsons 2 times a year.
Jerry Jones does his hit with the Dallas radio station, and he didn't deny that there was an offer. He just said that they straight up, because they asked, like, was it a straight no, or did you give a counter offer? And he goes, it was a straight no, because they weren't going to trade him division. So Jerry didn't deny that there was an offer made by the Eagles. Was it what Jay Glazer said? We won't know. But like, Howie is a wild man for actually being like, I'm going to do this, because
only Howie would call within the division for another team's best player and actually make an offer and maybe make an offer and actually have a discussion with Jerry Jones. Because first of all, making Jerry Jones
offer for Jerry to say yes.
And make, first of all, to have Jerry Jones actually hear you out and to try to make sense of things for Jerry Jones probably is an absolute task and a half in itself. So, I mean, for Howie to do that, he's a bad man. He is, and we know he is. We know that he's going to try that stuff, and he's the only one willing to do it. But, I mean, and you saw Micah Parsons, I think he played 45% of snaps, because obviously he wasn't fully integrated into that defense. He's got he was getting like epidurals or something to help with his back.
He still looked quick.
He looked quick. He had, I think it was 4 pressures. He had a sack. That Green Bay defense with him on the field versus without him. First of all, the defense in general looked really good, but with Micah Parsons on the field, that defense looks scary. So, I mean, you can tell they made the right move in getting Micah Parsons. And eventually, the reality is Howie's likely going to see his day where he has to pay an edge rusher $40 million. Let's just face it. The day is going to come.
It's never.
But that'll be when the salary cap goes, another couple years of exponentially growing.
So it's one thing about Micah, and we kind of jumped off topic here, but he was dominating
Penny Sewell.
Right tackle. Penny Sewell. I was going to say Sewell for some reason. He was dominating Penny Sewell. How anybody thinks he's a better right tackle than Lane Johnson, I'll never understand. Lane Johnson was so good against Micah Parsons, when they went up. So I am looking forward to that. I think it's week 10 that the Eagles go to Green Bay on Monday night to face the Packers. So you'll get to see a healthier Parsons at that point in time. But that's a different story for a different day.
Just a couple more things, I guess. Yeah, but back to the game, because I just wanted to make a couple notes on the offense. A.J. Brown, definitely not 100%. You could tell that, like, in some of the all 22 that was shared, he would end routes and he'd be like hobbled or hopping a bit after the route. He's not 100%. I don't know if it's something that needs more time. And if it is something that needs more time, I mean, it feels like now's the time to get him off the field and find a way to make sure he gets better for the games that matter and for the time of the season that matters most for us. So I don't know what the need, but he looked so far from 100%. He looked like a complete null factor when you look at some all 22 and some highlights of the game. And you can't have that for the entirety of this season or come the most important weeks of the season. So I don't know what they need to do, whether that's sit him for a couple games, as much as we know that would be a detriment and completely kill some of the offensive momentum. But we saw with him on the field up against Dallas, there was no momentum coming from A.J. Brown on that side. So that was one major factor.
You see, of course, what the offense looks like without him out there, though. So
exactly. So at least, you have to still take a body, maybe have someone watching over top of A.J. Brown's on that football field. Without him on the field, it's one man over there watching whoever you're going to throw out there as a wide receiver 3. Jalen Hurts, I mean, we talked enough about Jalen Hurts, but I think he had a great game. He had an efficient game. He had a smart game. He's smart. He's efficient. He was accurate when he needed to be. Call him a check down Charlie all you want, but he wins. He took what the defense gave him, and I would expect nothing less from any other quarterback. If all a defense was giving you was checkdowns and you trusted your guys to go make plays with those checkdowns, of course I'd throw 15 or 20 of them a game. Why not? It's an efficient way and it's a smart way to play because it's least likely to see turnovers happen. Obviously Saquon Barkley couldn't really get a whole lot going because they were playing with the stacked boxes all game. There was a focus on that. You kind of touched on Kevin Petula. This will be my last point. Kevin Petula, he had, the green basic playbook in the preseason. Now the playbook's opened up for him. I hope that this is not the playbook that we're going to see, the condensed formations and trying to open the running game up. The condensed formations with a running game don't tend to work all that well. We saw when he unleashed Jalen Hurts on that play to Jahan Dotson. Jalen Hurts is very effective in those situations. He's very good in those situations. We've seen the Devontae Smith touchdown in the Super Bowl, the Jahan Dotson throw against Dallas. He can make those plays happen. Of course, if you make him do it 20 times a game, no, he's not going to be as effective. But when you do it to open things up and clear some space out, he can make those plays happen. We know that he can. And it's one of the more effective plays in the playbook for the Philadelphia Eagles all through last season was that 4 or 5 times a game, just that bomb out of nowhere when a team was least expecting it to open the offense up. Seeing all of our tight ends on the football field, knowing that Kylan Granson and Grant Calcaterra are probably 2 of the worst blockers you're ever going to see on a football field from a tight end perspective is certainly something. It's certainly a way to play football. But I'm gonna chalk this up to week 1. Kevin Petula is going to his answer in the presser was less than enlightening and quite discouraging, to say the least, when they asked him about playing up against these boxes and these heavy boxes, and he kind of basically shrugged it off and said he didn't think they were playing against that. Someone needs to tell him what that is and what it looks like, because it was exactly what Dallas was doing. but I'm going to chalk that up to week one, and hopefully we see more from Petula over in the coming weeks. But obviously, the three tight ends on the field don't really need that in Philadelphia, especially because you have more effective weapons and better weapons and better. I mean, some of our receivers are better blockers than even the tight ends. But I'm going to chalk it up to week one and hope that he gets his stuff together.
Because Ben Van Summeren is out for the rest of the year, was torn patella tendon, I believe it was. That Granson and Cameron Latou could be potential fullback options for the handful of plays that they decide to use a fullback. So you'll see more tight ends out there. So
to be honest, Ty Robinson did it in college, and I think Ty Robinson would be far more effective. I know he'll wasn't in this situation. He should be, yeah, exactly. He will be active. He should have been active. He was a bit of a surprise, him and Ojulari. But I mean, at the end of the day, he's a guy who has the experience and was super effective in Nebraska at being a fullback and running the football. I'm sure he'd be equally effective blocking because he's a massive human being. So I mean, I would probably open the door to that possibility if Vic and Petula talk and say, hey, can I borrow Ty Robinson and show the Nebraska film just to say this is what I want to do. So I mean, maybe, but those were my concerns. I'm chalking some of it up to the rust, and he's a first time play caller. This was his first official game calling plays. His answers in the pressers he needs to probably work on, or how he watches film he probably has to work on. One or the other. One of those things is not compute in there. So. But we'll see. Hopefully things get better as the weeks go on and he opens up the playbook more and him and Hurts work together more.
Yeah, I hope that they weren't trying to hold things back for, bigger games down the road, because the first game of the year, Dallas Cowboys, that's a big enough game. You don't want to lose that opener. Nick Sirianni is now 5-0 in week one games. He is 2-2 in week two games, though. So we'll see what happens. They lost last year coming home from Brazil. Against the Falcons after they should have won, but they lost after the defense allowed Kirk Cousins to go like 80 some odd yards after Saquon dropped a third down pass that would have been the game sealer. So we'll see what happens as the Eagles travel to KC this week against the Chiefs in a Super Bowl 59 rematch. Before we finish off, what are your thoughts on the Tank Bigsby trade? Will Shipley's going to be out for a little bit. There were more kickoff returns this week than there have been in a long time. I think that the average return, it's been the most since 2001, if I'm not mistaken. I think I saw the stat. So, and the Eagles one return. I think Mechie returned it. I think they only got to about the 20-yard line. So they want to obviously get better field position if they're returning. Aubrey didn't fare too well kicking off for Dallas. Some went into the end zone, some went out of bounds. It wasn't the best day for Brandon Aubrey, who's one of the top kickers in the league. What are your thoughts on the Tank Bigsby trade? A fifth and a sixth rounder going to Jacksonville for Bigsby.
Yeah, it was Mechie had a 20-yard return and Shipley had a 12-yard return. So I guess, and the way that the Eagles played it and the way that, the Cowboys played it, you can tell they're more of doing like a squib kick type situation where they're forcing the return because they don't want them to come out to the 35 if they don't have to come out to the 35. So you can definitely tell that they're forcing that more, and Howie had seen enough of it that he wanted to make the move. And the good thing, Tank Bigsby, he's a very effective running back as well. I mean, he's not your traditional return guy. Like I think he's 6'2", 210 pounds. Like he's a pretty big return guy, but like there's some highlights out there where he's just trucking guys, and he's got really good athleticism and good speed for a 210-pound guy. And last year, I think he ran for over 700 yards. I mean, his pass pro, not great as a pass catcher. But I mean, when Will Shipley's back, I mean, I would take Bigsby over AJ Dillon. You could potentially see, when Shipley's able to be healthy and back again, maybe they're able to move on from AJ Dillon. Bigsby's under team control. He could be the fullback, yes, of course. I mean, he's got the size to do it, I'm sure. And as a running back moving up to a fullback, you kind of know a bit more about what's going to be happening behind you with the running back and stuff. So, I like the deal. I thought it was a good deal. I know that there's a lot of people who are crying over how he's wasting picks. First of all, Howie's only dealt later day three picks essentially. He still has 10 picks, half of which are on day one and day two. He's dealing the and I think of the three most recent trades, this is the only trade he didn't get picks back. So in like the deal for John Mechie, he did pick swap. And in the deal for blanking on the other deal that he made, John Mechie Jacorian Bennett and the Mechie deal, he ended up getting picks back, pretty much pick swaps. He gave up a sixth, got a seventh. He gave up a fifth, got a sixth. So he went from having 13 picks to having 10 picks. And I think the 9 of them are rounds 1 through 5. 5 of them are rounds 1 through 3. So he's not worried about that. And let's remember this. He ended up making 10 picks this season, and over half of them aren't even on the roster anymore. There's only so much room on a roster, and to make a big deal about what is Howie doing with these picks, if there was a guy you should trust with what he's doing with picks and making deals, I understand that some people may say, look at the Kenyon Green deal. Of course, not every deal is going to hit. Kenyon Green was hoping, maybe he'd get another Mekhi Becton opportunity out of it, and obviously that didn't come to fruition. But I mean, back to the deal at hand, I think it's a good deal. I think he saw the writing on the wall with how special teams coordinators are going to work kicking and kick returns going forward with now that the ball comes out to the 35. The NFL's plan to get more kickoffs is definitely working. And I mean, I, for one, am very happy to see it. I love seeing kick returns again. I think it adds an element, and it brings some more value back to special teams. And it clearly shows with the move that was with this move by Howie. I mean, I thought it was a good deal. I mean, I think Bigsby's a former 3rd round pick. They drafted Tayshawn Patel or whatever his name. Yeah. Patel. So I think, I think that the writing was on the wall. ETN had an incredible game, rush for 140 yards.
There was also talk of Bigsby potentially being the number one, running back throughout the offseason. But
there was ETN, a ton of talk of that. So that he's a respected player. He's a good player, and he just kind of fell out of sorts because they have ETN. They sat Tootin, but he's going to be back this week, obviously because they've moved on from Bigsby. But I mean, I think it's how he is making moves with a vision towards how he can make this the most effective football team and put the very best players he can on the field and get these wins. And you could tell that with this Za'Darius Smith move as soon as pretty much within 24 hours of the game ending. And then with this move that came out of the blue last night. So, I mean, I like the deal. I think it's a good deal. A 5th and a 6th. How many 5th and 6th round picks have worked out for the Philadelphias? I think more UDFAs have worked out for them than a 5th and 6th round.
Jason Kelsey.
Of course, there's going to be some you can find, but I also Reed Blankenship, UDFA. You never know what you're going to get in rounds 5, 6, 7, and the UDFAs. So he'd be more than willing to move on from those for players who like John Mechie and Tank Bigsby, who were day 2 draft picks that just didn't work out with the teams, or the team started loading up the room and they weren't able to keep up with the room that they were in. So, I mean, he's making smart moves and giving opportunities to guys who at one point or right now are still well-respected players.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens going forward. And he's probably going to, once he gets comfortable with the playbook, probably be the second running back, while Shipley is out. And I think he has actually more upside than Shipley. But, we'll see, besides the pass protection thing.
Well, I mean, and if you're worried about the pass catching aspect, Will Shipley's a good pass catcher. You could have some thunder and lightning going on, like a tandem in the backfield, because you're not replacing.
Taking Saquon off the field.
No. Well, exactly. You're not taking Saquon off the field, but say there's an injury. There's nobody out there right now on this roster, or nobody that a team's going to give up that's going to be able to take on the Saquon Barkley workload. So you kind of need a tandem behind him, ready to take on all of his work and try to be as efficient as possible with that.
And then Nick Sirianni praised the special teams after the game in the locker room, and Braden Mann deserves a ton of credit for his punts and not letting Kamante Turpin return any. And you know how dangerous he is. And for the most part, the kick coverage, punt coverage teams were really, really good for the Eagles. So that's definitely key. And they have to continue that going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the Eagles have been really good with special teams in general, and they've made some really smart decisions, and they're very, very smart with who they keep. When it comes to the 53-man roster cut down and who they bring back, they look at guys who can provide, if you're going to provide us nothing on the offense or defensive side of the ball, which they, of course, try to find those guys, then they end up finding a guy who's going to be extremely efficient on special teams. And they definitely have a handful of guys right now who are almost exclusively going to be special teams guys, but are so good at it that you can't risk losing them to anybody.
Hopefully, they don't let bring Covey up off the practice squad. No.
Oh, just like last year, we don't need to see that again. Bring him up 4 times and then have to sign him. We're good. We're good.
Yep. The Eagles are 1-0, and they're heading to Kansas City this weekend for a Super Bowl 59 rematch against the 0-1 Kansas City Chiefs. We'll be back Thursday or Friday this week to get you set for the Super Bowl rematch. Both Connor and I picked the Eagles to defeat the Dallas, so we're both 1-0 on the early season. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHorrell54. And follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pinpool Network. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for tuning in to the first Victory Green Hour of the 2025 season. We will see you later this week. For Connor, I'm LJ. Have a good night.